Hi everyone, Chris here, and I've got the Galaxy S24 Ultra. I've been using it for quite a few days now and just full on since I've got it. And this is a follow-up video to my hands-on in Las Vegas. So as you probably know, there are some big improvements to the screen. So it's brighter, it's now a flat screen, it's got Gorilla Glass armor, less reflective, more scratch resistant too, which is of course welcomed. We've got the same battery capacity, 5,000 milliamp hours, up to 45 watt charging with it. The S Pen. And I'll be covering the camera's battery life and all that wasn't in that hands-on in Las Vegas to let you know a lot more about this here, the Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra with its Galaxy AI. And is it enough to entice S23 Ultra owners to upgrade to this latest model here? Now the unboxing experience here is rather short because this is all that is included. So we have our Type-C to Type-C cable, SIM tray tool, and a quick start guide. That's it. No charger is included or case. And what is different now taking a look at them at their build design? Well, not a lot. It's 2 grams lighter now. We have a titanium frame and no more rounded edges on the back of it, which is still Gorilla Glass. It does feel a little bit better, but you don't notice that difference in the weight. We're talking about 2 grams here, and you can't really distinguish that difference at all. Build quality is excellent. It's still IP68, and you'll see along the top, we've got a minor change there, an extra microphone compared to the S23 Ultra with our S24 Ultra. SIM tray down at the bottom in the same location does support 2 nano SIMs, so no micro SD card support. We've got our S Pen still, that's the same as last year. You'll notice a slight difference to the loudspeaker. It's now just this little slot there. It almost looks like an SD card slot, but of course it is not. And we still have Android Auto, of course, video out, and Samsung DeX with it. You can see the microphone down here too in the same location, and the antenna lines. No changes there. Volume buttons and power button located on the right hand side in the same place. You can easily get your thumb to that power button. And the big difference with the cameras is we now have that 5 times periscopic camera, 50 megapixels. So that is 5 times optical zoom. It's electronic and optically stabilized as well. We have the 200 megapixel camera again, our 3 times camera, which is 10 megapixels. That is from the previous model, 12 megapixel ultra wide. No changes to those there at all. The big change is our screen, so still 6.8 inches, it's a Quad HD display, but it's now brighter with our S24 Ultra. This panel can now output 2600 nits versus the 1750 we have with the S23 Ultra, which I've got here on the right of the screen. Now it's less reflective, it's covered with Gorilla Glass armor, and those reflections are apparently 75% less. And just looking at them now with some reflection of the background there, it does look a little bit clearer to me, and you can see the slimmer bezels too as well. On the right again, that of course is the S23 Ultra, and the bezels do look a little bit larger. We have the curve to the screen here on the edges, which I do like. It makes it feel comfortable in hand. Not that it's uncomfortable, the S24 Ultra. It still feels very good, and you just get those slimmer bezels. So it's got a sleeker look to it. It looks, I think, slightly nicer, and in hand feels better with that titanium frame. So the screen is incredibly clear. It's very bright. It responds to touch really well. We've got a One UI 6.1 here based off Android 14. And the UI is really smooth. I don't notice any lag at all. I've got 12 gigabytes of RAM. In fact, all models have the 12 gigabytes of RAM. And my model here that Samsung sent out to me does have 256 gigabytes of UFS 4.0 storage, which is incredibly quick, as you'll see later on with my benchmarks. Now under settings, we have our typical options here that you do see with Samsung and most Android phones. So the adaptive brightness, that's there of course. I'm just using it at the moment to test it out, and I found that it does work quite well. I don't find the screen to be overly bright or too dim. It seems to adjust with that ambient light sensor really well. Now the screen resolution by default is on Full HD Plus, and I've put this onto QHD Plus. Do you see a difference? Well, when you're looking at the screen really close, yes, on QHD you notice it's a little sharper, but at normal viewing distances, the Full HD Plus isn't actually a bad resolution. You don't really notice that. You won't see any pixels no matter what resolution you're using out of those two. So you see we do have options for our color mode, which I do have the screen mode here in Vivid. That's by default, and you can put it on to natural. And in Vivid, you can adjust the white balance there. And there's further tweaks you can apply to the display. So it's an excellent looking display. Touch gestures, they're working fine. No issues there. It really is a top-notch panel here from Samsung. Now, if you don't like the cutout there with the camera, which is 12 megapixels, same as last year, well, you can hide that if you want. You can have the black bar at the top, But I don't see really anyone doing that because this is a very minimal little cutout there. It's not that large, and I don't find it really offensive. It doesn't get in the way at all. So as I mentioned, it is running One UI, and this is version 6.1 now that comes with the Galaxy S24 Ultra, and the performance of it is excellent, very smooth. I've had no issues, no bugs, and this is the first firmware, so there will be, of course, updates, and they will fix any bugs if there are any there and improve upon the performance, but it is really good, really responsive, and it seems to be running at 120 frames per second. I don't notice any lag with it. Now, battery life, this is the fixed test that I do, which is PC Mark, and why I do this is because it's a fixed test that just keeps looping. I set the same brightness, the same settings with all the other phones, and you can compare all of them in all of my phone reviews. And you see here we've got 12 hours and 42 minutes. Now this is about 1 hour better than what I got with the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra. So battery life has improved. Now I ran this with Quad HD, and it is by default their Full HD Plus resolution. So if you run that, you will get slightly better battery time, but it seems to be around about 8 hours of on-screen time if you run the default Full HD Plus. Of course, at Quad HD, it will be a little less. So the charge time, that is 67 minutes with a 45-watt charger that I did use to test it out. So this falls behind a little bit of what we're getting from some other flagships. There are flagships out there that have 120-watt charging, and they can charge in about 22 minutes or so. So this is one area that I really wished that Samsung could improve upon, was the charging speeds, but they kept it the same as the previous model. Internal storage, so it is UFS 4.0, extremely quick here. Look at this, we're getting over 4,000 sequential reads, writes of over 3,000, and random access, that is over 1,000 megabytes per second, so really quick. That is impressive to see how quick the storage is. So here we have Antutu. Now this is, of course, now with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, it's the OC version, and with this here, the score is slightly faster than that of what we got with the previous model. And of course, I do have my Galaxy S23 Ultra here, and you can see the differences between them, that it's not really a lot. Now we're getting a boost there in the CPU, GPU, across the board there, and that is similar. So a little disappointing here. I was expecting a bit more. I was expecting close to, say, 2 million points here. But it is not really noticeable, the performance between both of them. They seem to be about the same. When you're in the UI gaming and everything, there's not too much of a difference there. So I'll just show you too, this which is a Wildlife's Extreme Stress Test, which does test out the throttling. And you can see the result that I got here. The stability with the S24 Ultra drops down to 55.1%, where it's 80% with the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra. So it doesn't throttle as much. The S23, we get a lot more throttling with the S24 here. Now this, bear in mind, is on the first firmware, so this could change and will likely, I would say, be improved upon with some firmware updates here. You can see that the best loop score there is very high, getting well over 4,800 compared to the almost 3,800 there with the S23 Ultra. And then the lowest score here is actually lower on the S24 Ultra, which is interesting to see that the performance there when running for long periods does drop right down as expected. Now to the touch thermals, it got up to, well, 44 degrees here, and to the touch it gets up to about 42. So you do feel it getting a little hot when you push it really hard with a test like this. And you'll see that a Widevine level 1 cert, of course it does have this, so Netflix, Amazon Prime Video, that is all going to be in full HD, Disney Plus, all of those streaming services. We have level 3 here too with Camera API, so if you want to test out Gcam ports or Open Camera, any third-party camera application is going to work with the Galaxy S24 Ultra. So we still have our S Pen, and I find it a fantastic stylus. The latency is pretty much almost instant, very low, and you can see it clips away into the same location. So it's changed slightly the design of it. It's a little bit more squared off, and when you press in, you hear a nice little click, and it pops out just that little rear of it, so you can pull it right out and get it out, and very easy to do so. So you have the same options as we had before with the S Pen, Smart Select, Screen Write, and I'm just going to create a note here just to quickly show you what it is like. Now the latency I find to be very good, really quick here. You can see when you write, it's basically instantaneous, especially here with the Note app, and it's a really good feature here to have. And excuse my bad writing, just going to quickly scribble down here, TechTablets. So it's as it was before. They don't really need to make any major changes to this. There are some more refinements with One UI 6.1 to it, with a few little additions, but overall it's just as good as it was before. A fantastic stylus experience. On to gaming performance now. This is Genshin Impact, and I've got it set to the maximum settings, so that is highest and 60 frames per second. And I've noticed that the gaming performance feels and looks pretty much exactly the same of what I remember when just using my Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra. You really don't see too much of a difference between the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 and the Gen 2 here. Now the game runs really smooth, really well on these highest settings. You don't notice really any lags, any issues, frame bits, or any problems, and the thermals aren't as bad as when running that synthetic benchmark that I showed you. So 3D Mark, stress test, that got it really quite warm, but gaming like this, I noticed that the phone gets a little warm, but nowhere near as hot, and the performance seems to be exactly the same. You notice sometimes a little bit of a dip off in the frame rate, but overall it's very steady, really playable, and looks absolutely fantastic on this 6.8-inch screen. Really is a stunning game. Then we have Samsung's Galaxy AI. So this is a very useful feature. Right now, I'm just in a text message. So I'm going to send a text off to someone. I've selected it. I can press the AI button here and change the writing style. If I wanted to make this, say, a little bit more professional than what I just wrote, it will give me some options. So you can see there's the original text. Hi, David. It's Chris. Where are we meeting tomorrow? There's the professional option, which is basically fluffed it out a little bit there. There's casual, social, polite there too, and other options. You can put even some emojis in there that it's done to add that. Now, this is very useful for just translating text as well. So you can use this with different languages and you can have it two-way conversation. Now, this AI is going to work with the translations, not just in text message, but also calls, and it can do it too in your WhatsApp and Messenger applications. So basically where you have a text input, you can use this and change it. And here I'm going to show you how to translate some text that I'm going to do. So I'm just sending another message here, and I want to just select all of that, and I can now tap to translate this. So it's going to translate it from English into Spanish, and I can just get it to replace that. So this is handy, and again, it's a two-way thing too as well. So if this person replies in Spanish, it will then send you that too and translate it into English. So very handy. And I'll show you another one of the AI features too. So this image, for example, which is, I know it's the Auckland Sky Tower, but imagine I don't know what tower this is and I want to identify it. Well, I can hold down here. This is, of course, the gestures that I have enabled, but if I keep holding, that then enables me to circle something and it will identify it. So if I do this here, it's going to use its AI and find out what that is. So it managed to find here, okay, Auckland Sky Tower, tickets and tours, Auckland Sky Tower. So it did identify that. So it's very handy for the image identification. I think that will be a useful feature for something like maybe you want to identify some fruit that you don't know what it is, or maybe an insect. Well, it's going to be able to use that with Galaxy AI and tell you what it is. And what about our speakers? So no changes compared to the previous model. We've got the downward firing speaker, and then our earpiece, we have another one. They sound very loud. There's a little bit of bass to them, some treble and mids. I'll give you a sample now at 100% volume just to give you an idea of what the speakers sound like in the Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra. Over to our cameras now with our Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra. So front-facing camera, no changes here compared to last year. 12 megapixels, can shoot 4K 30, 4K 60 frames per second. Audio bitrate is 256 kilobits per second. And what I've noticed is the wind filtering seems to be a little bit better with this model. Perhaps they made some hardware changes to those microphones or some hardware filters in there, but I do notice that it doesn't seem to pick up that wind as much as it did before, and it is quite windy right now. Yet you can hear me quite clearly, but yes, a little bit of that wind noise. So let's take a look at those rear cameras now. The ultra wide, the same again, so 12 megapixels. We've got electronic image stabilization, and I'm shooting here out at a place called Maraitai. In the distance, that's Waiheke Island. Panning around, it does look very good, this quality. No dropped frames. This is now the main camera, which has optical and electronic image stabilization, 200 megapixels. We've got our 3x, and you can swap over to all of these cameras at 4K 30 or even 4K 60 frames per second. And now this is the change, the new camera, our periscopic, 5x. Very steady, good stabilization. I'm just going to move slightly here, and then I can go now to 10x. Wouldn't really go over 10 times video. Once you do, I'll just show you. I'll just tap here and go to the 20 preset, You can see it's got a lot of noise now and grain, so it degrades the quality. Back to 5 times now. Have a look at there we go, seagull. 3 times, and then the 1 times again. So this is 4K 30 that I'm shooting at to match my timeline. So what about our cameras? Is it a big upgrade, that zoom camera? Well, with video, I noticed the quality is a little sharper. However, the electronic or optical image stabilization doesn't seem to be quite as good as the 10 times optical camera we have with the S23 Ultra. The previous model also does handle bright flowers better, capturing more details, not so much saturation, less clipping. So clearly to me, there are some updates required. We are on the first firmware, remember, with this phone. Zoom photos, both of them right now at 10 times. I noticed there's a different color science to the S24 Ultra, that it has more saturation. Look at the green grass here. It's a little bit overdone. It's more natural with the S23 Ultra. When you zoom in, this is now 200% crop. You can see that the sensor has less noise than the S23 Ultra. So in that regard there, in that area, it is better, the S24 Ultra zoom camera, but it depends on the situation. Great to see that Samsung has toned down on the over-sharpening with our main camera. So you can see the difference here between the S23 Ultra. At first glance, it might look better, but when you crop in, this is a 200% crop, you can see clearly that the S23 Ultra is over-sharpened, overdone a little bit. I do prefer here the S24 Ultra. So that's a welcome change there from Samsung. With night shots, the S24 Ultra, I have noticed, is marginally better than its predecessor. You can see a little bit more detail. With this shot here, the grass has a bit more detail, a little clearer around where that shed is, and you notice when I crop it here to 200%. But if you want to see all of the changes, make sure you check out the side-by-side comparison with the S24 Ultra versus the S23 Ultra, because there are some very interesting results there. It's quite mixed, as you'll see. So all up, this is an excellent phone, and it's a very minor upgrade over the S23 Ultra. So far in my time using it, it just feels like a refined S23 Ultra, and it's not a huge leap ahead. Sure, we do get the flatter screen, the brighter screen with that Gorilla Glass armor, the latest version, so it's less reflective, 40% more scratch resistant, which is great. And well, they claim 75% less reflections on this, and I've noticed that it does fare a little bit better. And being flat, it does feel nice. The rear is now flat, there's no curve to it. So in hand, does it feel better than the S23 Ultra? I think it does, mostly because of the titanium around the outside of it. It has a good feel to it. Just feels higher quality compared to the more smoother finish of the steel frame, the alloy frame that we had before. The titanium just makes it feel that a little bit more premium. Now the S Pen, great to have, no changes there. It's the same as before. They didn't really need to do anything with it. It's got that ultra low latency. It works really well, those pressure sensitive levels. And I find myself using it a lot for just minor notes and things. And I know a lot of people don't really take advantage of it, but if you're, say, an architect, a designer, an artist, then you're going to love that, and this will be the flagship to go for the S Pen and all the built-in features. So the charging rate, I really feel like Samsung should have done something more there. 45 watts is fine. Yes, it charges in just over an hour, but if you look at the competition out there with other Android flagships, we're getting charge times of under 25 minutes, and most of those will charge well under an hour. So they're falling behind a little bit there on the charge rates, but I still find 45 is good. And of course the charger's not on the box there. We don't have a 3.5mm headphone jack and no micro SD. Those sadly are gone forever, but I would have loved to have seen their comeback. Samsung could have surprised us with a 3.5mm headphone jack and micro SD support, but sadly not there with it. So the changes to the 5 times zoom camera, while going from 10 times to 5 times now, it is slightly better. It's a marginally better camera. We can now shoot 8K video with that zoom camera, which is a welcome change there in addition. And I've noticed that the wind filtering with the S24 Ultra is a lot better than the S23 Ultra. They made some changes there. It's probably down to hardware with the microphones, maybe a little bit of wind filtering built into it now, or perhaps just software, but it is a noticeable difference there. The battery life being slightly better than the S23 Ultra as well is another welcome tweak there. So overall, it's a tweaked, refined version of the S23 Ultra. Is it enough to entice S23 Ultra users to upgrade to the S24 Ultra? I really don't think it is. But if you do have, say, the S22, S21 or below, then this is going to be a big upgrade for you. If you're a few generations back, then really it is a no-brainer to upgrade to the S24 Ultra with all its built-in features, amazing build quality. It's an all-rounded phone, and it's probably going to be like my S23 Ultra, one of my favorites for the year I can see with just what is on offer here with the Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra. So thanks a lot for watching this early review of it, and do check out my camera comparisons between the iPhone 15 Pro Max and this phone versus the older S23 Ultra. It's really interesting if you want to know exactly how much it has improved. Those zoom cameras as well, video, whatnot, all covered there. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.